to welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and I am doing a review of the Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb. This is the first book in her second trilogy, the Live Ship Traders trilogy, and this comes from her overarching series of the Realm of the Elderlings. So the first trilogy was called the Forestry Trilogy. And now this one we are in a completely different location with a whole new set of characters. And it is multi-perspective. So, like, if there are characters in this book that you don't like getting their perspective, trust me, there are plenty of characters to get different perspectives to give you a break from that perspective you do not like. So, then we are brought to the seaside town of Bingtown, where their form of business is trade business, and the community is run by several trader families, and each family has what is known as a live ship. That is a ship that has magic, and once 3 captains die, I think it's 3 different generations of captains die, their spirits will imbue the ship and bring it to life and it will become a sentient being. The main family we are focused on is the Vestrit family, and their ship is the Vivacia. And the story starts with Captain Vestrit. I do not remember his first name. He is on his deathbed, and he's making out his will, and he had planned originally to give his live ship to his second daughter, Althea, who loves the ship just as much as he does and has been traveling with him and has been learning a lot about having to sail on the high seas. But his wife, Veronica, convinces him that Althea should stay home and he shouldn't favor her over Kefria, his eldest, that she should get the ship. And much to the dismay of Althea, he does give the ship to his daughter Kefria, who, because she wants nothing to do with this, she passes on to her husband, Kyle Haven, who is not from a trader's family, and is kind of an asshole and does not understand and appreciate live ships and the business of trading. In fact, he wants to turn their family business into a slave trade business because he thinks that will be more profitable. So Althea, who is heartbroken and does not want to, and this is the life she wants, not the life her mom wants for her, which is she wants her to be a proper lady of their family. She decides to try to find a way to get the ship back, and ends up running away to become a sailor, disguise herself as a boy, and become a sailor on a different type of ship. A smuggling ship, I think, something like that. And she ends up running into her father's first mate, Brash, and they end up running into each other and end up on the same ship. Meanwhile, Kyle, knowing that he needs a Vestrit on Vivacia to get the live ship, to work with him, he decides it's time for his son Wintro, who was given to the priesthood, to step up and be what he defines as a man. But Wintro does not want to do that. He is happy being a priest, wants to continue his life there, and he is not prepared to be a sailor. And throughout his whole time on the ship, he is bullied and told that he's not a man, that he's a coward. He needs to step up. He's told by his one ally on the ship that he needs to, defend himself against the people that bully him. And Wintro is not that way. He's a more peaceful person. He doesn't like the idea of violence. And despite his horrible time on the ship and not wanting to be there, he does form a bond with Vivacia. A very complicated relationship. There is love between them, but there's also a little bit of resentment building up. And just his relationship between him and his dad gets even more antagonistic. especially with his dad, and it is made worse by his dad's first mate, Torg, who loves picking on Wintro. Meanwhile, you have this pirate Kenneth, who wants to be the pirate king, and he comes up with this. He is obsessed with getting a live ship. He wants this a live ship to own one and rule the seas of this world. And he starts with this plan to rescue, quote unquote, rescue all these slaves and set them free and make them part of his crew. Basically turn them into pirates. And he spends his whole arc is him hunting for a live ship, but he has to go through rescue all these slaves. And meanwhile, okay, sorry, I'm stumbling here. I'm such on a roll. Anyway, you have one more plot, which is not as exciting as the other ones, but you have Ronica, who's coming to the realization that maybe she was wrong and that she shouldn't have given the ship to Kethria and Kyle and allow Kyle captaincy, because he took away her grandson into a life, putting him into a life that he hates and is worried for Wintro's safety. And at the same time, they have to deal with Kethria and Kyle's 13-year-old daughter, who is already ready to be a woman. She wants to grow up already and wants to go out and, go to parties and socialize and dress up and everything and find someone, find a romantic partner to flirt with. So that's basically the plot of this story. So, like I said, it is multiple POV, so we have a lot of plot going on in this story. This was so good, and it's been a while, as I've said in update videos, to have a book where I just wanted to keep reading. I mean, now of course with the length of this book, I ran into the problem I usually run into in these books, where I'll start reading it and I'll read a good chunk and really get into it and really enjoy it, but then for some reason I will put it down, take a long break, and then I finally came back to it. And I think I started reading this book in 2020 actually. I mean, looking at, how Goodreads has to, will show how many times you've updated, and, when you start reading and when you finish it, the dates. Well, I think I started reading this in 2020. I mean, it might even been when I had the mass market that I started reading this. But at least I'm finally done, and during my second reading of it, once I got back into it again, I did not want to put down. I kept going and just really enjoying it, and just, and I'm one of those people, I've said this before, that I'm one of those people that, instead of, those people who will yell at the TV screen when characters are being dumb or frustrating or pissing you off, that I will do that. I mean, I will do that with TV shows and movies. I also do that when I'm at home in the privacy of my room, but I will also do that with books. So there were so many times when I was getting so frustrated, especially in the chapters with Kyle and Wintro, or chapters with Kethria, Ronica, and Malta, and those characters, just Malta and Kyle just pissed me off so much when I was reading this book. I was just get so frustrated with them, and it's so disturbing because they both think they're so smart and that they're the geniuses of the family, and that everyone else is, and they never acknowledge that they're the cause of their own problems. Kyle's already gung-ho to blame his son, saying, if you had done what I asked and it went my way and were cooperative with me and just listened and were gung-ho and wanted to, and he's thinking, oh, I'm giving you this gift, you get to have the Vivacia and run the ship and be sail the seas, and that's the greatest gift ever. And for some people like Althea, it is awesome to sail on the Vivacia, and yeah, as much as he didn't want to admit it, Wintro did bond with Vivacia. But anyway, back to Kyle. He just deludes himself in thinking that he's the one in the right, and he has that fathers knows best mentality, and sometimes that's not always true. Especially when this kid is, in his teen years. I mean, yeah, you don't mature until you're in 25, I think. Fully mature. But I think, this kid, Wintro, is so much more mature than his father. And his father is like a man in his 30s or 40s. And Wintro is very much more mature than he is. And then, of course, his way of thinking is creeped very much into Malta's way of thinking. She's like, oh, you ruined our family. And my daddy, when his business of selling people and imprisoning people and turning them into slaves, oh, that's just so great. She doesn't really understand what slavery is. She just, just hears what her dad says about it. And it's like, oh, well, if this is profitable, that's a good thing. And she just doesn't understand the concept of how they're running out of money. And that it's kind of sad that Kyle thinks that is, he's led to believe that enslaving people is the solution. And she's just so, she's too young to understand, to really comprehend what's really going on and what sacrifice she'll have to make. All she cares about is parties and looking pretty and impressing boys and getting a boyfriend and, flirting with them and wearing pretty clothes and dressing like a woman. And, she thinks she's a grown-up. And, I feel like when people think they're a grown-up, think they're an adult, is when they act the most immature. And then when you do grow up, you finally are forced to be immature and accept the reality of your situation, accept things that you didn't understand, you couldn't even begin to comprehend. And, it was just so hard to read those chapters with those two characters, because those characters just infuriated me as I'm reading from their perspective. So it was a relief when we got back to characters like Althea, or, even Veronica and Godfrey, even though at times their chapters were, I'm sure for other people, those chapters could be boring, because they're mostly talking about their finances and what they're struggling with, their solution, how to deal with their current problems. Although her chapters are also, her perspective also leads to an important aspect of the plot, which connects them to the Rainwilds, which I'm sure we're going to learn more about them in her series, The Rainwild Chronicles, which is a 4-book series. But anyway, so, her chapters, I think, are important, but they're not the most exciting chapters. But it was a nicer reprieve when we weren't with Malta and her being a dumb little brat and getting herself into trouble and not realize. And she does that thing that kids, bratty kids do, where they're like, you're being mean to me and I'm going to tell my daddy when he gets home. She automatically thinks things are going to go her way if Kyle gets home. And maybe that's possible because she's got Kyle wrapped around her little finger. And I think Kefria, who just sees her as this little naive little girl still, that way, Malta's not wrong about, in that sense, that, yeah, she's not a little girl, but she's not a grown-up yet. She's not an adult either. She's not mature enough to be an adult, to be considered an adult. And I just think it's so weird that she's 13 and she thinks she's ready to be a woman. And she's 13 years old. 16 is pushing it enough, but, it always seemed they always seemed a little bit closer to adulthood when they were 16. I mean, they're not there. They're very immature. Kids are we're very immature at 16, but it's a little bit better than 13 and thinking you're a woman. And I guess because there's a lot of stories where you see a lot of young adult stories where the main character's 16 and she's in a love triangle or dealing with death or something like that. Like the loss of a family member or trying to make a little bit more mature decisions. You see that kind of story all the time in a lot of young adult fiction. Meanwhile, you see this 13-year-old girl who thinks she's a woman, and you have men that are like 18, male characters that are 18 that want to court her. And I'm just like, she's freaking 13 years old. But then at the same time, I think Veronica senses more how this girl is not innocent. She's not that naive. It's just she listens, but not enough to fully understand the consequences of her actions. So it's kind of I feel like it's kind of a weird age, a weird point where she's not completely naive and is a little bit more aware and is like aware enough to be manipulative and have some understanding, but not a lot. Enough to know how to manipulate people and get her way. But at the same time, she's still innocent, like young enough and immature enough that she doesn't realize, she's not paying attention to the consequences. She doesn't truly understand. She still has that, it's my way or the highway. It's, I want to get my way. I'm going to stomp my foot and you're going to do what I say. And my daddy's going to do, make things better. Make it all about me again. And maybe that's true because, like I said, she's Kyle wrapped around a little finger. But anyway, enough about Malta. She's the character I wanted to smack. What's about Kyle or not Kyle, I want to talk about him. Kyle or Wintrow and Vivacie's relationship, it's such a beautiful relationship because there is affection that develops between the two of them. I mean, it's a little unhealthy because the ship kind of develops a selfish streak because she wants to keep Wintrow there even though he's unhappy, but she's aware of it. Like, her personality is so interesting. She feels like a human even though she's physically not human. She has a personality that she's developed and that she cares and even loves Wintrow, but she's self-aware that she's still a ship. And he might not be able to love her the way she wants him to. But he does love her and does care about her to an extent, but he keeps trying to fight it. I mean, I think at this point, by the end of the story, he decides to no longer fight it. But then it does take hints at a very interesting direction it's going to go in the book too, with that relationship. But yeah, their relationship is it can be kind of sweet at times, and you can tell they do grow affection and do care about each other. And Vivacia still worries about Wintrow, and she wants him to defend himself, but at the same time she knows that it doesn't feel right for him to resort to violence. And like, at one point he even tries to run away, and it really hurts Vivacia. But she also feels like she also, like I said, is very aware of her selfishness. But yeah, Vivacia is really sweet and caring, but she has a streak that is like, don't mess with she's like a mama bear in a way. That don't mess with the Vestrits. She's like, they are my babies, and I will harm you. I will ruin you I will kill you if you hurt them. And there's a ship that we meet throughout that, you get some bits and pieces of Paragon, who went kind of mad, and this ship did, and that was a very interesting, those little parts that come with Paragon, and, getting hints of what happened and why Paragon has gone mad, and, like, it's interesting like that. And there's another aspect in the plot that I feel like also is where we only get a little bit of it with these sea serpents. We get their perspective, and they are in search of this she who remembers. And they're very worried that if they don't find her, this she, then they're going to lose themselves. So those parts I'm definitely intrigued. They're like, you don't get a lot of information on those parts, but you get bits and pieces that did help get me interested. I mean, there were times when I was confused in those moments at first, but as But as the story progressed, I kind of wanted to know more about those characters as well. But we didn't get a lot of them. Now let's go to Althea. I haven't talked about Althea yet. Althea is a very interesting, like, you get the impression. So you kind of find out that Brashen likes her, is attracted to her, but she very much is more focused on the ship, which that's also kind of interesting, because I wonder, for these people of these trader families, when they bond with the ship, does a regular human person never compare to the ship, their love for their ship? I'm very curious about that, like, because Althea did not seem like Brashen was more interested in her than she was in him. She was very focused on her goal. Like, she almost had the mentality, the role that a lot of times guys will take, which is yeah, we can hook up and I do like you, and you're my friend, but I don't have any stronger feelings than that. While Brashen was the one who was like really wanted to spend time with her, and took pleasure in their intimacy, and really thought, ooh, there's something there between us. I have feelings for you. Do you have feelings for me? Like, Brashen was the one who was more into the relationship. Well, she's like, no, we can't do anything. We just got caught up in the moment when something happens between the two of them. Or, like, it was because of this or this. It wasn't real. And she's so focused on getting back her ship, getting back to Vivacia. And, of course, now she's more focused on getting home, because she's just in this bad place where she thinks she's not going to get it back anymore. And so it makes me wonder if maybe people from trader families, they try to have a relationship with other people, but they just can't, because they can't compare to their love for their ship. Like, I'm wondering if I'm wondering Wintrow won't be able to. He wouldn't be able to have a relationship beyond the ship. Which I guess they can be with pirates, because let's talk about Kennit here for a second. I mean, Kennit, he's I actually kind of liked him at first. He's one of those characters that is very charming and likable, but has a temper. And can be very much an asshole. Like, but he's lovable. He actually can, he knows how to win you over, basically. Like, he charms these slaves to act like he cares about them, and he puts up this front of, I'm here to help you, I'm the savior, and I'm gonna free everybody, and but when you piss him off enough, you definitely don't want to piss him off. Like, at one point, his girlfriend, Etta, I'm just gonna call her his girlfriend, she's not really his girlfriend, she's his little pillow buddy. She ends up accompanying him because she gets attacked. So to protect her, he brings her along because he does like her. And she is forced to, he almost loses his leg to a sea serpent. And she's forced to save him, cut off his leg, and he gets so pissed when he wakes up without a leg. And part of me is like, okay, I can't blame him for being a little pissed, because it would be hard to live with just one leg. Especially, in any profession, to have no leg and be basically handicapped. Yeah, that would be a miserable life if you couldn't, and it would be a struggle to get past it. But he is so mean to her about it, and like, how dare you? And he thinks you're out to get me and ruin me. You and his first mate, I can't remember his name, are out to get me and steal the ship. He's so paranoid, and he just is so mean to her, and he just turns on a dime against her. Like, there are some times when he softens her up and is a little bit back to being nice to her, but most of the time he's just so mean to her after that point. And it just pissed me off. Like, most of the book, I was cool with Kennit. He's a pirate. I'm not surprised by his and he's an antagonist. But Although I was assuming the book would go in a certain direction with Kenneth and Althea, but nope. It's not, I don't think it's going in that direction. The direction I thought it would. Which is fine. I mean, that's even better, I think. Um, but after the whole thing of him losing his leg and he becomes cantankerous and, paranoid and stuff. Although somebody tells me, so in the beginning of the book, he finds this necklace, which I don't know if it's, I think it's made of the same thing that live ships are made of, which is wizard wood. He finds he finds wizard wood, this necklace, and the necklace, apparently the face looks like his. He wears it, and it kind of talks to him. No one else can hear this thing except for him, and it sounds like him, and so I'm wondering if it's real or not, or if it's like in his head, or maybe it is real, but only he could hear it. I'm kind of curious about that. And I don't know if I can trust it or not. I mean, sometimes it seems like maybe, at first I thought it was trying to manipulate him and like was dangerous and corrupting him and everything. But then there are times when he's very much, when this version, like this talking necklace thing calls him out on his BS and tells him he's being an asshole, and he's just like, shut up, this thing, like, how when you get so angry and someone, there's a voice telling you and you're just like telling you to be quiet, basically. He has a lot of moments like that with this thing. But anyway, that's another, which brings me another thing, I mean, I don't think Robin Hall wants her books to be adapted. There's, I think I've read quotes from her saying, she would rather you use your own imagination instead of risk adapting these. And even though I will defend adaptations, and I always want an adaptation, I can understand why people are anti-adaptation now, because a lot of adaptations, especially for fantasy, it just isn't as good. Like, they end up letting down fans because they get these producers think they know better and can make a better story than the original work, which is just illogical to me and crazy. And they continuously blame, and from what I've heard, they blame the fans when the show or the movie does not go well. It's the fans' fault, apparently, and they don't consider that, like, oh, maybe it's us. Maybe we're just not doing a good job at adapting this. Like, you should respect the material. Like, yeah, you can't please. When you're making a movie, it has to do with, you're, like, you still, there are things in the book that you can't do for the screen for one reason or another, and you have to please a different kind of audience. You can't just please the people who originally read the book. You have to please a whole other audience. A whole different audience, like more than just the book fans, because you had to bring them to the story in the first place. But you still have to respect the fans and what the author originally created. And it seems like a lot of people, when they adapt, they don't do that. They don't respect the fans. They don't respect the original creation. They just do their own thing, and then it turns into only an adaptation, only a name. Or you could have a situation where they're completely different, but potentially the show or the movie can still be good. It's just not a good adaptation, But anyway. But I would love an adaptation to see some of the magic stuff, like seeing the live ships. Because there are times when the live ships are looking at the crew, or they have arms and hands. They're and I feel dumb, but I can't, because I mean, as much as I love reading, apparently my imagination is not that great, because I struggle with picturing this, like, without it looking cartoonish or something. So maybe it's better that it doesn't get adapted. I don't know, but part of me would still love to see what it would look like without, see if it could look good without it looking cartoonish to me. But anyway, also, I really like this world. The town kind of reminds me a little bit of Pirates. It reminds me of, I don't know, maybe because of the ships and everything, and it being, there's pirates involved, but the community made me think of Pirates of the Caribbean or Black Sails. That's what I picture when I'm reading this. That's what I picture Bingtown to look like the location of where the port where the port, I think, is it Port Royal? Port Royal, I think, is Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't know what the port is called in Black Sails, where the main act, where a lot of stuff in half the action is. If you've seen Black Sails, that's like I picture that a little bit. Which I wonder with Captain Gannon, who would be? It would probably between Toby Stevens or the guy who played, what is his name? The guy with the pirate with the really long hair. He was on Shameless too. Be that actor or Toby Stevens who played Captain Flint. That's who I picture as Kenneth. Or although maybe it would make more sense to have someone like the one who played what is John Silver. It might be him because he and Kenneth might be the same age. I don't know. But anyway, either way, I'm thinking that I associate Black Sails or Pirates of the Caribbean with this. I mean, it'd be kind of cool to see someone like Orlando Bloom as that kind of character if they adapted this. But like I said, I don't think that's gonna happen. But that's okay. I'll read the books and enjoy them. And just imagine in my head, maybe I should look up fan art. I bet there's some fan art, at least a little bit of fan art of this. But anyway, so the world of Bingtown was really cool, and this whole like, I like seeing when authors create a whole system of government in a whole like the hint of it, and it's just in the whole scenes where they're negotiating, trying to see what to deal with the the rain wilds and the trading and the big meaning that they have, all that stuff, and and I'm excited to know more about the rain wilds because there's so much mystery with them. Like you just get teased on what they are, but I'm obviously they're gonna explore them more. She explores them more in the Rainwild Chronicles, which I don't have those yet, but I do need to get them. Hopefully I'll get them at some point. Fortunately, the problem is I can get the ones with Fitz and all that those 3 series. I've seen those at Pixamillion, and then this one, of course, but I have not seen the Rainwild Chronicles in the version that I want. I have seen the mass markets, but I don't want the mass markets, so I might have to get those online unless they show up at Books A Million at some point. But anyway, but this setting is so much fun, and it's also great to read during the summer because like they're on the ocean and everything, and what do you do during the summer? You go swimming either at the pool or the beach. So it's actually a perfect read for the beach or the pool. You're by poolside. So I am I guess that's it. I just really love this and am really excited for this world. I already started reading Mad Ship. I read the prologue in the first chapter, and last night, of course, I just realized I don't remember whose perspective we were in the first chapter. Which, by the way, I think that really, like I said, if you're not, like, if you didn't like that first person narrative of Farseer trilogy because you didn't like Fitz, who's the main character in that book, and who we were basically with him the whole time in that book, that's an aspect of this you might appreciate, that we aren't with one character the whole time. We are with multiple characters in this book. So again, as I said in the beginning of the video, if there's a character you hate being in their perspective, or you find their perspective boring, then there are plenty of other characters who we spend time with. I mean, even minor characters like Brashen, we are in his head at one point. Like I said, at one point we're even with the sea serpents. Although there's very little of their perspective, and they got their own conflict they're dealing with. I'm trying to think of who else. But anyway, so I think if you like seafaring adventures, pirates, and fantasy, then please check out, if you haven't yet checked out this series. And a lot of people say you can start with the series because when it comes to the realm of the Elderlings, because we are, this is a whole group of different characters, and there is brief mentions of where where Farseer, with Farseer, the brief mentions of that, but it's not, like, it didn't take away anything in the story, because, I mean, I read them, but I don't even remember everything that happened. You know, I remember a little vaguely about that story. But that's why once I'm done reading this trilogy, I'm gonna reread that before I go to Tawny Man, which is, I think, the third trilogy. And then and then we have the Rainwild Chronicles, and then, which is 4 books, and then we'll go back to Fitz in the final trilogy. But so which is probably good. I think she probably did that on purpose. Like, was like, okay, we need a break from these characters, so let's be with new characters, and then we come back to those characters from Farseer, and then we take a break from them again, and then we go back to them, and we're back to where we started, kind of thing. But yeah, a lot of people say you could start with this one. I mean, like I said, I think it's almost, you know, better to save this one and do Farseer first. But if you just can't stand Farseer and you can't get into it at all, then you could get away with starting with this one first. I just think it might be like, try Farseer and try to get into it, and then this will give you a reprieve from that before you go to those characters again. But anyway, which I don't know. I actually remember enjoying those characters. So I don't know why people really. And yeah, Fitz is a little bit frustrating and annoying, but he's also a kid. Of course, you could say that about Malta. She's just a kid, but she's older than Fitz. I mean, we're with Fitz like the whole time, and we watch him grow up, and he starts out really, really young. Like, he's 6 in the beginning of the book, and we watch him grow up while Malta is 13. We're at that point in our life the whole time, but we're also not in her perspective. So when I'm in her perspective, it makes it all the more annoying. But I don't, and just her selfishness just drove me nuts. But anyway, okay, so I'm gonna stop there. Those are my feelings on the Ship of Magic. Like I said, I'm already starting Mad Ship. And I hope you enjoyed my review, and I will talk to you all later. Alright, bye!